Have you ever imagined someone living surrounded by billions in artwork, yet surviving off expired canned food? Sounds like fiction, but it really happened. The protagonist of this story wasn't an eccentric billionaire, but a reclusive, almost invisible man who hid one of the largest collections of Nazi-looted art in his modest apartment. While the world moved forward, Cornelius Gurlitt remained there, among paintings by Picasso, Matisse, and Chagall, as if frozen in time. Or maybe trying to hide from it. For over 7 decades, no one suspected that so many works lost during World War II were stacked away in a forgotten corner of Munich. How was that possible? Who was the father who passed on this dark legacy? Why did Cornelius choose silence? And the most unsettling question: how many other treasures are still hidden out there, waiting to be discovered? If you think you've seen it all about Nazism, think again. This story involves art, mystery, morality, and an heir who never wanted to be a hero, but became a symbol of a past the world still struggles to understand. And the most incredible part? It all started with a simple train ride and an envelope filled with too much money. Hildebrand Gurlitt wasn't just another name in the art world. He was a curator of dark secrets. Imagine a man who, despite his Jewish roots and initial persecution by the Nazis, managed to flip the script and become one of the Third Reich's most influential art dealers. Yes, a survivor who became a collaborator, responsible for storing and selling confiscated artworks, often under dubious circumstances. The story begins with this disturbing paradox, revealing the moral gray zones that haunted Europe. The historical context was a mix of fear, ideology, and shady opportunities. While many artists were persecuted, others, like Gurlitt, saw the chaos as a chance to rise. The Nazi regime labeled modern art as degenerate, but didn't hesitate to sell it for profit. And who was there, in a suit and with a sharp eye, helping put those masterpieces on the international market? That's right, Hildebrand Gurlitt. He was like an auctioneer of chaos, selling what the regime itself called impure. But don't think he did it out in the open. Quite the opposite. He operated in the shadows, often with forged documents and acquisitions made under coercion. Some of the most iconic paintings of the 20th century, from Picasso to Matisse, passed through his hands while their rightful owners faced the horrors of Nazi persecution. It raises a question that echoes to this day. How far will someone go to survive and profit? The weight of those choices would, decades later, fall on the shoulders of a man hiding in Munich, surrounded by art and the ghosts of the past. Cornelius Gurlitt seemed, at first glance, invisible. Reclusive, friendless, with no social life, he lived in a modest Munich apartment hiding a true treasure, around 1,500 artworks inherited from his father. For decades, he lived like a ghost, surrounded by masters like Renoir, Chagall, and Picasso. The most curious part? He never sold a single piece, as if afraid to awaken the sleeping past hanging in those frames. He was the silent guardian of an uncomfortable inheritance. His life of isolation was almost monastic. Cornelius didn't use the internet, didn't watch TV, didn't keep in touch with his family. It was as if he had chosen to disappear along with the story he carried. Imagine living in a world where time stopped in the 1940s, while everything outside sped ahead. It makes you think, how many people live trapped in legacies they never asked to inherit? He didn't seem driven by greed, but by a strange loyalty, or perhaps guilt. The apartment, packed with art and dust, looked more like a forgotten vault. And while many called him eccentric, Cornelius seemed to carry centuries of weight on his shoulders. He claimed the paintings were his by right, but never displayed them. A collector with no audience, an heir with no stage. And in that silence and those stacked paintings, an invisible tension grew. Until one day, it exploded because of something as simple as a trip to Switzerland, with too much cash. It all started with a routine check. Cornelius Gurlitt was stopped at the German-Swiss border, carrying an amount of cash far too large to go unnoticed. Customs officers were suspicious. Who was this elderly man, unemployed, with no fixed address, traveling with so much money? The suspicion of tax evasion triggered a red alert, and soon, a search warrant followed. That's when the secret locked away for over 70 years began to leak through the cracks of an apartment frozen in time. When investigators entered the place, what they found was surreal. Behind expired cans of food, piles of papers, and chaotic organization, there they were, rare artworks, dusty, poorly preserved, but absolutely authentic. Nearly 1,500 pieces from Picasso to Matisse, hidden among mold and solitude. Imagine opening a door and coming face to face with what the world thought was lost forever. It was a find of epic proportions, valued at about 1 billion euros. The most shocking part? That no one knew before? How could such a valuable collection remain invisible for decades? The answer lies in Cornelius's profile, someone who lived off the radar in permanent hibernation mode. But the awakening was inevitable. The press found out, the world was shocked, and suddenly everyone wanted to know, where did the artworks come from? And more importantly, who did they truly belong to? The answer would lead to an even more delicate stage. Identifying the origin of Cornelius's artworks was like assembling a jigsaw puzzle without the box and with missing pieces. Experts at the Museum of Fine Arts in Bern, which inherited the collection, dove into old archives, sales records, and lists of Jewish collectors looted by the Nazis. Every painting told a story that needed to be unearthed. It was historical detective work, full of gaps, where even a signature on the back of a canvas could change everything. And no, it wasn't fast. It took years. The complexity was immense. Many works had passed through multiple hands, some under pressure, others sold out of sheer desperation. How do you prove, after so long, that a painting was ripped from a family during the Holocaust? Researchers cross-referenced data, Nazi catalogs, and searched for descendants who might not even know their grandparents owned art. Every piece returned was more than an object. It was a moral restoration, a small but vital act of historical justice. To this day, only a portion of the works has had its provenance confirmed. Around 380 pieces were recognized as looted, and only a small number have been returned to heirs. But the work continues. And here comes an important reflection. How many other Gurlitt collections are still hidden out there, in basements, storage units, or behind false walls in old mansions? As you can see, this story is far from over. Now tell me, how many stories like Cornelius Gurlitt's are still hidden, waiting for a curious eye to uncover them? How often do we live surrounded by information, secrets, and lessons, yet fail to notice them out of distraction or indifference? This story of a reclusive man who inherited a fortune of shadows is a powerful reminder. The past never truly disappears. It simply waits for the right moment to be revealed. And when that moment comes, you either face it or keep repeating the same mistakes. Maybe you too are carrying legacies you never asked for. Ideas, beliefs, traumas passed down from others that still shape your decisions today. Cornelius's story goes far beyond art and war. It's about legacy, identity, and the quiet choices that shape our destinies. And now that you know all this, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you shelve it like an old painting? Or will you reflect, act, and question? If this story moved you, if it made you think, and I hope it did, then subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. Because there's still so much history for us to uncover together. And you can be sure, the next one might be even more shocking.